I know things are weird right now. I'm sorry about that. It's been so hard getting over my shame. I forgot about my kid. Life just happened so quickly.
So the cat is out of the box. Miss Juanita's man turns out to be an old flame from many years ago who happens to be Jeremiah's birth father. And this conversation was beautifully written by Kene Belser. Shout out to Sister Girl. And what I love about this conversation is he was painfully and brutally honest. Sometimes that might not come out pretty, but the truth needed to be said. And what we wanted to do, we didn't want to paint Rufus just as a deadbeat. I feel like that's too convenient. That's too simple. Mistakes were made in the past. He wasn't living right, as you guys learned. He was fooling around with Juanita while he was in another relationship. And I feel like time affords us all to grow and become better human beings. And it's beautiful to see someone own up to their mistakes.
Accountability.
Accountability and their hard truths. No, I don't have a relationship with you, but I do have a relationship with my other children. Didn't feel good to hear it, but Jeremiah needed to hear that so he can heal. And I feel like the way that the conversation went, there's a possibility that their relationship can be mended. Well, not mended because they never had one. Their relationship
Work towards something.
Work towards having a relationship. So that was a beautiful scene. Shout out to Sister Girl.
I can't stay away.
I know.
I actually wanted to talk about your future.
What?
Let's talk about this moment with Giovanni and Daniel laying down, looking up at the sky like they in somebody's cute ass park. Let's talk about this for a second. So when Sister Girl wrote it and we pitched it, we talked a lot about Giovanni being this very controlling man. Mm-hmm. And this moment was like to the extreme. So we're laying down, I'm over it. I done cooked dinner for you. And
I'm ready for you to go, pretty much.
And you tell me you got a spot for me. Right. Not down the street in somebody's California.
Right.
And when we were pitching that, we wanted it to be to that extreme because it played more on who he is as a person. Mm-hmm. And it kind of like peeled the layers back to how he was in the past. Mm-hmm. This is something he's done before. Mm-hmm. And Daniel's letting him know, like, I can't just pick up everything and leave.
Because you want me to.
Because that's not where I am.
Exactly.
And that's not where I want to be. And I feel like in that moment, Daniel was realizing, okay, I see what's going on here.
Things ain't changed. There's a reason why it's been 10 years.
Exactly. And we ain't said a word to each other. And I feel like in that moment, a lot of things were going on because he was dealing with Rufus and Jeremiah early in the episode. Mm-hmm. And I feel like coming to this, it was just something he didn't need. And we wanted to really explore this idea of, is Daniel still in the same place of, because Daniel from season 1, I feel like would have went with Giovanni to California. Because that's what he's wanting. Mm-hmm. But we kind of wanted to turn that on its head and say, well, hey, no, I'm not that Daniel.
Mm-hmm. They is a woman?
Yes, but...
So when you said discreet, you really meant on the DL.
You know, I really hate labels.
Lying-ass niggas usually do. I totally misjudged you.
Benjamin and Dr. Lopez have been having this fling for a while. And we see Dr. Lopez come over to the home. And we've learned that he identifies as discreet. But not even a full 30 seconds later, we discover that he's actually on the DL in a relationship. And I remember talking about this storyline in the writer's room. We wanted to explore that because that is something that happens in the gay community. We have men who live their lives one way, like you guys have seen in previous episodes. He's renting out restaurants. He has this flourishing business. He's
flirting like nobody's business.
Flirting and kind of towing the line, between professionalism and flirting. So he has this image, but behind closed doors, he's doing all of this dirt. And naturally, in Benjamin, in true Benjamin defense, he kicked him to the curb. And rightfully so. That's just my opinion. Rightfully so. Anybody. But it was a subject that we wanted to tackle because...
And it was interesting.
Yeah.
Exploring the fact of, hey, I'm feeling someone. I have genuine feelings for someone. But how do I interpret and tackle that knowing nobody else knows who I am?
Exactly.
And that was interesting because I don't think Dr. Lopez wanted to be in this situation, it was just sticky and happened to happen this
Exactly.
way. And I felt like he was wrong for not telling Benjamin about his wife. And to have to find out that way was kind of like, well,
exactly.
Like,
and I feel like it's interesting for anybody. I feel like it's interesting to live a lie and hurt people than just sit in your truth. I feel like it's interesting that people find that easier to be a liar, because that's what he is, a liar. To be a liar rather than living your truth.
A liar who loves.
Yeah, exactly. And accept who you are. Exactly. So, bye-bye, Dr. Lopez.
See you later.
Where were you when I needed you? All those nights that I needed a shoulder to cry on, or someone to talk to, or someone to comfort me. You weren't there, so don't expect me to be there when it's convenient for you.
So, when we were in the writer's room discussing episode 308, well, let me back up. So, when we were discussing episode 307, 8, and 9, I had just recently cut an episode. So, originally when we started writing this final season, we wanted 10 episodes. But then I said to my writers, I want 9. Just from like a production and producing standpoint, I said, I want 9 episodes. So we had to figure out how to close 6 chapters in 3 episodes. So we spent 6 hours on the phone trying to dissect Daniel, Tasha, Benjamin, this storyline we've developed with Cameron and Tori, and how do we kind of end it all without it feeling forced. So the first thing that came to my mind was a bottle episode, because we're exploring a baby shower. And what more to explore with games than a baby shower with all of our central characters? So you have Daniel and his mess going on with Giovanni and that big thing going on in the bathroom. Writing that scene was like super interesting because it's the first time we've seen Daniel confront a man head on and kind of like tell him his feelings without like compromising what he wants. And he finally kind of told Giovanni how he felt. So it was kind of interesting to see that and how it led into everything else that happened with Tori.
And within that episode, it's very interesting because this episode, you really, really get the biggest insight into the character of Tori that you've seen. We see her become vulnerable. We've never seen her vulnerable and actually just owning up to the fact that my life is not perfect. My life has been this big fairy tale. Tasha, you were right. I have been trying to, put out and purport that I'm this person. And
that was beautiful because I think one thing we want this show to represent is that people are human.
Yes.
And
yes.
I felt like in that moment, Tori became human.
Yes.
She's been this bitch this entire time. And her sitting there and realizing, hey, we are kind of the same kind of people. And we've never realized this until now was kind of unfortunate because they are sisters. And I felt like if they had communicated, they would have realized that. And in this moment, it was kind of beautiful to see Tori fully realize who she is and the mess ups that she's made and how she's going to confront that with her sisters going forward.
Exactly. And just adding on again with talking about Tasha early on in the season, when you're hurting, you are going to hurt other people. I feel like Tori has been hurting for so long and she didn't know how to fully express that because all the expectations put on her as the oldest, as the most successful.
So all she knew was how to do that. And she learned that from her mom.
From Mia, exactly.
So that was a learned behavior from her mother. And you see that a lot throughout the series because they're the same person.
Exactly. So shout out to Maya for absolutely nailing
beautiful
that monologue.
episode.
And shout out to our director of this episode, Miss Michelle A. Daniel.
Who came all the way from Atlanta to direct this episode. We love you, girl!
Love you.
Yes.
Beautiful episode.
Listen. All jokes aside, I love my wife. Wow, this is great. And I do mean great. God damn.
Fun fact, I actually thought of this Cameron and Tori storyline in my sleep. I had a dream about Maya and Dominic as actors, and it was really weird. I woke up and said, how the hell do we get the two of them in a scene? So when we had discussed Tori cheating on her husband, and there was this potential baby father, I said, what if it's Cameron? And everyone, they thought I was crazy, but it was actually the most brilliant thing because that scene with Maya and Dominic is possibly one of my favorite scenes of the series, period.
Yes.
Just exploring that tension of, hey, we could go here, but everything outside of us is allowing us not to. Me with this baby and all the things that I have to address, in Cameron wanting to go back to his wife, but still unleft and explored feelings between the two of them. So that was another beautiful moment to explore, and we hope you enjoyed that.
I love you.
Daniel.
I know it seems silly for me to say it now, especially since you're about to move into your own home, move on with your life. But I just thought I had more time. I know it's ridiculous, but I held off on expressing how I feel because I didn't know how you were going to react.
So I feel like this is the moment that our audience and our cast has been waiting for since the breakup in season 2 happened.
Right.
So after all the turmoil, after all the hell, after all the betrayal and all of that has gone on, we finally get an admission. Benjamin and Daniel still love each other. Now, when we talked about this in the writer's room, about how we wanted to end it, we were very specific. We do not want a happy bow tie ending.
Because that's just not realistic.
That's not realistic. What we wanted was for our characters to finally get to a place where I can be open and honest with you, and whatever you give me in return, I can receive that and move on with my life either way.
This is what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was very, very pleased to see that performance come to life. Even though I wrote that scene, I was just waiting for that, like, anticipation. I'm like, I can't wait for him to finally say it. And I love that their response. I love that they're not running from each other. I love that they're not making excuses. I love that they're just saying, hey, this is where I am right now. If I want to get back into this, I want to take it this way.
Because we didn't want to rush them back together. Because it wouldn't have been organic, because the two of them still aren't in a place where they can be open and honest and communicate. I feel like Daniel's almost there, and Benjamin, from 305, he had issues kind of communicating, but I feel like they're both at a place where they can say, hey, this is what it is. And it was just beautiful, because I felt like there was a possibility of what it could be. That's always what we wanted, and that's what Unconditional Love truly represents is, can you have it? Yes. Is it going to take hard work? Absolutely. And it has to take two people willing to be in the ring with each other, fighting for what they want every day. And if you don't have that, it won't work. And we've seen that with every relationship on the show.
What took you so long?
Fear, insecurities, my pride. Sometimes I just feel like you're too good for me.
Me? Too good for you? You don't know how special you really are.
You compliment me way too much.
And it's a habit I don't want to break long as I'm around you.
So, in the series finale, we just had to have that moment. Tasha has this big realization. I am going to stop hiding, and I'm going to go after what I want. And she's going to go make this grand entrance. I'm going to tell this man I love him. It's going to be flowers and roses. But
she thought there was another woman. And, that was... Originally, Aubrey wasn't supposed to be this kind of mainstay, which she really isn't. But she was supposed to show up and kind of like filter out throughout the series. But we said, hey, let's have her show up there and see how Tasha would react to that. And originally, the scene was more long, drawn out, where Tasha was really supposed to be... We saw her insecurities still, because she felt like she was losing the man she's fought for this entire series. Well, she didn't really fight for him until the end, but the man who's fought for her, the only man who's been there for her, the only man who's wanted to grow with her and saw potential in her, but she saw it for him too late. And it was kind of interesting to see, well, hey, how do we get this woman who's in the middle of the both of us out the way? And I feel like it was so beautiful to not see Aubrey be so catty. Because that's what we explored in the writers' room a lot. We didn't want this black woman to say, we didn't want it to be a fight. We didn't want it to be Love and Hip Hop. We wanted to see, I get it. You're in love with this woman. This is the woman you've waited for your entire life. And I'd rather be happy with someone I love than to stand in the way of two people who obviously want to be with each other.
Now, this sucks because it does hurt me.
It does.
Because I do have feelings for you. However, I knew what this situation was from the beginning.
Exactly.
A lot of people don't know how to realize that.
Right.
You knew going into it what it was. And now I can bow out gracefully knowing that you two have this connection. It was beautiful, and I'm glad we talked about that because it could have turned into something else.
What are you saying, Rufus?
What I'm saying is I want you and I need you. Let's do this again, but let's do it right this time.
So I loved writing this scene because it was the very first time that I got to write Juanita from a vulnerable standpoint. The first time that somebody said something to Juanita and she automatically didn't have a comeback. It's interesting that Juanita has been a character to talk and give advice to everybody else, but when it comes to talking about herself, she shook. And her needs and her desires and her things, so much of putting on other people's things, but she's always forgetting about herself. So when Rufus said, I love you more now than I did before, she hasn't had a man tell her that since she lost her husband.
Exactly.
So how do you respond to that?
And this was kind of like one of her first true loves.
Exactly.
And it was interesting exploring them going back into that, and him help her, also reminding her, your kids are grown.
Yes.
And we're grown. Let's live our lives
together. And it's interesting because things like this do not happen every day.
Exactly.
The man that you loved 30 years ago ain't always going to come back 30 years later. You know what? I'm grown. I'm here now. So I felt like it was good to see Juanita tear down those walls and say, you know what?
This is what
This is what I need. I'm thinking about myself first. For once.
And I'm glad she is, child.
Yes.
Good for her.
Yes.
Good
she
for
can
her.
stay out of her son's business and they can go and live a life happily and healthily. So that was a beautiful scene. I loved it.
And I'm still your mother. And as long as I'm above this ground, all we got is time. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I don't pretend to be Wonder Woman and lie and say that I'm not scared, because I'm scared as all hell. This disease may take my mind, but it can't have my heart. It will always be with you.
So when we were writing the finale, we were like, we kind of need something between Bernadette and Benjamin to kind of cap off their storyline. So I decided to write a scene again, not tying it up with a bow and saying, okay, they're fixed. They're magically fixed.
But there's some room.
There's some room for, improvement and to play with. They both still have a lot of growing to do. But what I wanted to showcase in writing that scene, I wanted them for the very first time to really tell each other how they feel about each other. I wanted Benjamin to really lay his burdens at Bernadette's feet about how he has felt, about how he's treated her. And what I love about Bernadette is she allowed him to have those feelings.
Right.
It's okay that you felt that way about me, but guess what? I'm here now. Let's worry about right now. So that was absolutely beautiful. Shout out to Keeyen and Mary Lou for absolutely killing that scene, and it was just beautiful. I love that there's promise in a relationship, but I also love that it's not fully healed and fixed.
Exactly.
I wish you the best of luck. No hard feelings. Seems like you want nothing to do with me.
Well, thank you for watching Unconditional Love. We hope that you've enjoyed the series and that you've related to it in some way and that you've loved and hated and cried and wanted to cuss out these characters. That's
and
been
us.
our mission. Yes, and us. And we hope you support whatever we do next. And I just pray that you share this with a friend and a family member, everybody down at the church for many years to come. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.